It's a rigged game. But that doesn't mean you should sit there like a deer in the headlights and do nothing. If we understand that the game is rigged, and I mean rigged, well, that's our strength. We understand it's rigged, so we play the game. It gives me hope, I think, for a society that is in some terrible form of decay. I mean, look, we got to make a difference. And you're making a difference. I would hope that a lot of your listeners are making a difference. It's got to start with someone. Why doesn't it just start with us? It's that simple. And again, when things get really, really bad, that they're going to offer their solution. They've already had it. The Federal Reserve is determined to kill the dollar in its current form. They already have a completely new 100% digital fiat blockchain-based dollar, which will be replacing the dollar in its current form.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We have a returning guest who's always popular with our viewers. Gregory Mannarino is the host of TradersChoice.net. He joins us this Wednesday, August 12, 2020. Greg, thanks for coming back on the show.
Great to be here. Always love your show. And so let's do it.
We're privileged because I know that you don't grant all the interviews that you get requested of. So we're glad when you're able to come on. Our viewers storm our gates with all kinds of questions ahead of your arrival. I think we have like 150 that have been submitted. So clearly we're going to have to be very selective in what we talk about. But for those who haven't already been following your video blog, and people you should, just get on Twitter and go to Gregory Mannarino, and he'll post morning and evening, both before the market and after the market, updates on what's going on, as well as intraday. But for people who aren't yet plugged in that way, could you give us your 2-minute or 3-minute overview of what you think the most important forces and factors are that people need to be aware of right now in the market that we're facing?
In the market, well, number one, I think, and we've spoken about this before, I think we have to understand what our greatest resource is, and that's each other. That's the truth. But, with keeping on point here with the market, understand what we're looking at. It's just a twisted environment that is being propped up on the back of epic debt. And all we're hearing about from Fed president after Fed president is, you need more debt. The environment we are in is unlike anything we've ever seen before. There's nothing that comes close to it. It's a twisted thing. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't be at least trying to take advantage of it, because it's just so easy at this particular time. And, from a trading standpoint, it's the gift that keeps on giving. From the other side of the spectrum, understanding what we need to be doing in this kind of environment, it's a no-brainer as well. And it goes back to what you and I have spoken about for years. Gold, silver, hard assets, more specifically silver. That's it. I also believe that people should hold cryptocurrencies in their portfolio as well. Just understanding that the system is toxic. And there's going to be a moment of reckoning, whenever that may be. I don't know. We just heard from Warren Buffett today, who's warning about a market crash or a market meltdown. And we heard from a couple of big Wall Street banks over the past several weeks saying the same kind of thing, although maybe not as dramatic. But the market seems to be just defying gravity and going higher and higher and higher. And the reason for that is very simple. It's just floating on oceans and oceans of debt. And these oceans of debt are going to get much deeper, much more convoluted, much more twisted, the mechanism behind it, what's really going on here. It's a global takeover on an unprecedented scale by world central banks working in tandem with ECB and the Federal Reserve, probably number one and number two, instituting their grand plan to flood the world with as much debt as they possibly can, to be the lenders and buyers of last resort so they can own it all. There's a current plan on right now, and I think it's pretty obvious. Most of your listeners probably know already. That is to kill the dollar in its current form, issue in a new one. So the environment we are in is it's pretty dynamic. It's pretty incredible, and I think so people just need to keep their eyes open.
When you talk about the gift that keeps on giving, that's something that you do for your subscribers. You post trades that you make throughout the day, throughout the week, and you've got this amazing track record of success at that. You've been able to just grab anywhere from whatever 5 to 15 to 25% gains in a matter of days, typically, or weeks at most, over and over and over and over again. What you've talked about for years is that people be aware that yes, we're in a bubble, the debt's in a bubble, the market's in a bubble, all this, but you keep showing people that they can pull cash out of the market and put it into hard assets. And that's something it gets to be difficult for people to wrap their head around because they've been traditional financial advisors tell them, oh, just stay invested in the market, go long and ride things out, with stocks, that kind of thing. That's not what you're telling people. You're telling people that no, we are in a very fragile and precarious position for the markets, but you can still pull profits out and put them into solid places. If there's anything about that I missed or that you'd like to emphasize, please do, because I think it's a real important distinction to make for people.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I am specifically a derivatives trader. In fact, I don't own a single core stock position right now. I did up until the last time the market dropped. I sold all my core positions the Friday before the market melted down.
And you told us all about it right before the collapse.
Probably one of the best calls I've ever made. It just was a freaky thing, but I just had this weird feeling, and it played out perfectly. So now, I mean, what am I doing here is, it's free to everyone. It's 100% free. You don't charge anything for it. My newsletter, I do exactly what you say. I tell people what I am doing, specifically in real time. This is what I'm buying. This is how I am playing it. This is how I'm finessing it or hedging it or whatever it might be. I've posted dozens and dozens of positions in there. I have not had one single realized loss. I have one trade that I'm in right now, eBay. That trade right now is actually in the negative, but it's not a realized loss. If I closed it today, I would have a realized loss. Mm-hmm. But right now, it's down, not even very much, maybe like 11%. But, we'll see. It doesn't expire till February. But what I do is I get in here and I kind of just cut little pieces out of the market. And pulling small amounts of profit consistently adds up over time. I mean, it's incredible. My own trading portfolio this year is probably up close to 60%. It's almost incredible to think about. But this is what you can do. And, it's about understanding the environment we're in, which we've covered, having a little knowledge of how to put money to work in this market. But I can't imagine anyone. It's so easy because I'm telling people what I'm doing personally in real time. You don't even have to know anything. I would like people to have some type of a knowledge of the market. And, look, we're taking advantage of a rigged game. That's all this is. And I've been saying this forever. It's a rigged game. But that doesn't mean you should sit there like a deer in the headlights and do nothing. If we understand that the game is rigged, and I mean rigged, well, that's our strength. We understand it's rigged, so we play the game. We play the rigging. I always say, let them play their game. We will play our game. And that's all this is. And, I'm out here. It gives me a great satisfaction to hear from people that say things, wow, Greg, you changed my life. I'm able to do this, that, and the other thing now. And now I'm taking a portion of my profit and I'm paying it forward. That's all I ask people to do. I want people to be successful in the market, but then realize that if they're pulling profit, they should take a small amount of that and donate to a charity that they believe in. Something that, we always got to pay it forward. If you pay it forward, rewards come back to you greater and greater as you move forward here. But, that's all I want people to do is make money in the markets, level the playing field, and then take some of those profits and pay it forward. It makes me feel good when I hear from people that are doing that. Oh, Greg, I made this amount of money and now I'm going to donate to X, Y, and Z. I feel like, wow, it gives me hope, I think, for a society that is in some terrible form of decay. I mean, look, we got to make a difference. and you're making a difference. I would hope that a lot of your listeners are making a difference. It's got to start with someone. Why doesn't it just start with us? It's that simple.
One of the things that you made me think about just now is that so many of the systems of our world seemed to be set up against the individual. The little guy tries to go in there, works hard, puts his nose to the grindstone, and ends up getting fleeced in the end. And you see that in the legal system, you see that in the political system, you see that in the financial system, so many systems. But this isn't a system that you've got enough of a handle on. You go, guys, we can actually put some effort in here, not even that much effort, because I'm gonna lead you and show you my step where I step, walk where I walk. And when they do, they'll really benefit. And I guess one of the things you mentioned about not having core positions in there is you are recognizing that there is a bubble. In that bubble, at some point the music will stop, and so you want to keep taking your profits out and not leaving your big nest egg vulnerable to that.
That's a great way of putting it. I've told people that I will not open core positions again in the market. What am I talking about when I say core positions? Maybe that's confusing to people. Let's clarify that. I like to own large cap, high dividend paying stocks. This is where I would put a certain amount of cash into in a different market. What would be that different market? I would like to see the 10-year yield above 1%. We're not even close to that right now. What are we, 0.67 or 0.66 or something along those lines? If we had a 1% 10-year yield, I would consider opening up some new positions where I own the stock in a large cap, high dividend paying companies. And that would be like my core holdings, and I would still trade around it. And I've done that for a really long time. But right now, I got nothing. Nothing is open at all, zero. I feel like, like you just said, we got to be ready for this to flip around. Could it happen? It could happen at any moment. But the issue is very simple. We're in an environment where the Federal Reserve is inflating by design. And the more they inflate, the more they pile into on their balance sheets, plural, they have two, the market will follow higher with that. And, I've been telling people this for a while, and I've pretty much nailed it to the wall. What do they have, a $7.1 trillion balance sheet right now, the one we're allowed to see? Well, I think that's going to balloon to a much larger level. I mean, look at which we just got, a budget deficit just came in. Was it yesterday, I think? Yesterday? We shattered every record known to man. $3 trillion budget deficit in 10 months. This environment is not sustainable, although they're putting a lot of effort to keeping it sustained. And it's all, again, like we started off this whole interview here, floating on debt like we have never seen. We're doing the equivalent of a TARP program every day. It's unprecedented. And again, it's part of the takeover here, where central banks have existed. Let's talk about our central bank, the Federal Reserve, 1913. When they got together, their grand plan was to eventually do what they're doing now, to be the lender and buyer of last resort so they can own it all. The Federal Reserve is making loans to bankrupt states, municipalities, obviously the nation itself. I mean, it's incredible that
other countries
created slaves like this. They've created nation slaves, individual slaves. It's what it's all about. And it's a terrible thing to watch unfold, honestly, especially with our good-for-nothing zero Congress. They can't get anything done. Neither side of the aisle. They're I think sincerely angled directly against the American people. They're all for the corporate agenda. It could not be more obvious. We got 50% of small businesses now gone forever since this whole COVID scamdemic. That's what I call it. And we got corporate America stronger than it's ever been. How does that work? Unless it's, of course, by design. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Based on that last emphasis you're making there, Jay Edward, one of the viewers, asked a question talking about how you've said the Fed's goal is to own it all, be the lender of last resort. If the Fed gets its strength from the debt it issues, dollars, what happens if the public loses faith in the dollar? If the strength of the dollar is the public's faith in it, and the strength of the Fed is the dollar, would not a public loss of confidence in the dollar mean that the tool the Fed has used is rendered powerless?
Well, that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're going to eventually take the dollar in its current form. It's being phased out. And again, when things get really, really bad, that they're going to offer their solution. They've already had it. The Federal Reserve is determined to kill the dollar in its current form. They already have a completely new 100% digital fiat blockchain based dollar, which will be replacing the dollar in its current form. And we haven't seen anything yet, although we just found out that inflation is ticking up, although we're told it's not. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, but that's what they're doing now. But that's the truth. The whole system is built on one thing, and I'll go back to what that gentleman said. I think it was a gentleman, that on confidence that it will work. Who gets stuck with the bill every single time there is a failure in the market? Well, it's the people. It's not Wall Street. What happened last time? Wall Street got the check while the American people got stuck with the bill. And that's going to happen over and over and over again as they destroy whatever's left of the middle class. There is an attack right now, a deliberate frontal assault on the middle class. The middle class almost doesn't exist anymore. We are quickly, rapidly, especially now, moving towards this feudal system that I've been explaining would happen for about 10 years. It's in our face, and that's where we are at. And the central banks, the Fed, all of them, they will never, never give up control. Their strength lies in their ability to control the world's money supply. And everything associated with it. So again, this is why we will never see ever again in our lifetime going back to a commodity-backed dollar. It can't happen because it gives power to the people. The Federal Reserve, specifically, let's just stick to that. Their power resides in their ability to issue debt. They have one product. Their product is debt. I don't care what comes out of their mouth, what tools they might have. All they do is manipulate debt. That's it. So when you hear a Fed president or something talk about tools in their toolbox, they only have one. That's how they're going to manipulate the debt. So with that said, every dollar that the Federal Reserve is allowed to issue or called upon to issue by, let's say, a member of Congress, a president calling for lower rates, a president calling for a weaker dollar, whatever it might be, they have to compensate by issuing more dollars. And every dollar they issue makes them stronger. Most people who don't understand central banking don't understand that, but it's their product. As if an individual was selling, I don't know, cell phones, and the more cell phones they were able to disperse, the more strength they would gain. That's how they hold their power. If we could stop the Federal Reserve from issuing $1 more debt, they die immediately. But we can't do that. They got a stranglehold on the world, and their product is debt. The world functions off of that debt, and it's going to get monumentally worse. And I mean monumentally worse. And unfortunately, they're going to create a dollar crisis. Maybe this is what the question was all about. They are going to create a dollar crisis on a massive scale, and then they're going to issue in their solution. They already know how they're going to play it. They're going to wait for the outcry, and then they're going to offer their solution. It's always the same. And then the solution is going to be a new dollar, period.
Let's zero in on that for a minute because we have a whole bunch of questions, and I'll just narrow them all into one is about your view of whether, and I think you just touched on this a few minutes ago about Justice American says, if the dollar becomes digital, what possible motivation would the government have to back it with gold? And you already said you don't think they will use a commodity-backed currency because it weakens them. They maintain their control when they don't have anything solid behind the dollar.
That's
Other people have
true.
complained that won't be accepted, that any fiat failure will be obvious to the eyes of the people. But what I think you're saying is that, no, you don't think the people get it. The people are just going to go for whatever solution is proposed to the crisis that comes.
Of course, look, the people are so brainwashed or dumbed down or whatever the word might be. I'm not talking about people that listen to your work or mine.
But the masses are misled. Yeah.
They are. People who are smart enough to sit here and listen to you talk and your guests explain things are very out of the box kind of thinkers, and they think at a higher level than most people do. So yeah, of course, you, me, the person asking this question, we will not have. I don't have any confidence in the current system whatsoever because it's floating on oceans of debt. That's all it is. So it doesn't matter what the people want. It's about perception. Whatever's sold to the people, it's not reality that matters ever. It's always perception. And the central banks will find a way. They already have it worked out. It's just a matter of how they're going to implement it to keep control. I mean, we have killed millions and millions of people around the world, fought wars to establish a fiat monetary system and the petrodollar. They're not going to give up this power in any way, shape, or form. What they will do is eliminate as many people as they possibly can to keep their power here. Look at what's going on right now. Look what they're playing on people right now. What do we got? 51 million people out of work, desperate. This is what they got to create a very desperate situation. And then again, they offer their solution. That's what they're going to do. So what we're seeing now, in my view, is just going to get much worse here. We're just see what they're doing is they're using the stock market as an illusion yet again. Many people see the stock market at hitting record high, and they think everything is just fine. It doesn't matter what's going on the ground. It doesn't matter that we have no economy, that we're forced to be stuck in our houses to wear a New World Order symbol across our face. None of that matters. It's about the stock market. And again, going back to the people that listen to your work and mine, they have a higher level of intellect than the average person that's out there that has no idea what's going on. Most people walk through time and space. They don't know what they're doing, why they're doing it. Most of them don't even know their own name. That's just the truth. They've dumbed down society to such a level that it's gotten to a point where they've turned people into cattle or something, sheep, I guess. It's bizarre, it really is.
Yeah, we are very subject, and perhaps more than in the past, it's hard to tell, to sort of these dominant themes and narratives that are being presented to us through now it's online media, social media, the major networks, and so on. I don't know how different that really was from the past when there was all the newspapers and that sort of thing, but it certainly is concerning that public sentiment can be swayed so easily, and for specific incentives and gains that aren't for their own good. So let's focus in then, if we could, on people who have opted out, who want to opt out of that dependency, that enslavement to that debt, and are really, as you have said for years, becoming their own central bank and acquiring hard assets, especially physical silver and so on. There's a viewer who goes by Grinch saying, how would a silver stacker go about safely leveraging their stack to purchase property without actually selling it, including trusted lender entities, at what silver price, etc.? So there's a lot more to that question, but if you play that forward in terms of people who actually do acquire some physical metals, for example, how is that going to work in our favor going forward? If let's just say there's this new Fed coin system comes in and you've got to be in the digital only system, cashless, so you can't transact and all that. How do you thrive in a world like that, even if you have obtained precious metals?
Well, look, I'm holding metals, and I have for many, many years, because I believe they're an anti-debt. And that's really why I'm holding these things. These have proven to be pieces of wealth for thousands of years, and no Fed chairperson is going to convince me otherwise. So if we understand, the bigger plan is they are determined to kill the dollar in its current form. There is going to be a time, I don't know when that is, when we're going to have to move wealth around from one asset into another. That's all I do. Personally, even in the current system, I'm always moving cash around. For example, several weeks ago, I said publicly that I was selling some of my Bitcoin. Well, of course, I was ridiculed. Greg, you're wrong. What are you doing? It's going much higher. I didn't say it wasn't going higher. I sold it because I was just moving money around. Now, subsequently, Bitcoin came down and I bought it at a cheaper price. Come on. But going back to this, look, we are holding, in my view, we're holding precious metals because we are betting against the debt, becoming our own central bank, because that's what central banks do. They hold these things, not for tradition. Who was that? Bernanke?
Yep.
Tradition, I think that's what he said. But because we understand the mechanism behind the entire thing.
That's a really good point, because ever since Basel III Accord and central banks around the world for the past 2.5 years now have been just acquiring metals hand over fist. Russian central bank, Chinese central bank, all these countries acquiring precious metals and gold specifically. if there was no role for that in the future system, then why would they bother doing that?
Well, like of course, the role is these things have been proven to be holders of wealth. That's what they are. They are anti-debt. You own them. It's not like a Federal Reserve note, a dollar that you may have in your pocket or in your bank account. You don't own these things. These are owned by the issuing central bank plus interest that they print out of thin air. That's how it works. And you own something like a piece of gold or a piece of silver or even a cryptocurrency. You own it. It's yours. It's not owned by someone that's issuing it to you. It's yours, and you can do with it what you want to. It's a crazy situation here, and the craziest thing about it is, in order to keep it sustained, they got to continue adding debt to it exponentially. Once they stop doing that, this is why I said $1 stop the Fed from issuing one more dollar of debt, they implode. But it can't happen. Again, what are they doing today? The Federal Reserve is making loans to bankrupt states, bankrupt municipalities. Imagine if we said, oh no, we're not going to accept that money. What happens to those states? They turn into Mad Max. Think of the stranglehold that the Fed has on the world, because the dollar remains the world reserve currency. It's a horrible thing to see. It really is. And I think in the end, people are going to wish things were different, but they're not. They're all what they are.
So do you picture a time in the future when the dollar's gone as a replacement digital currency, but holders of physical metal somehow are able to participate in transactions in their life, be able to acquire real estate or property or food or whatever?
I have accepted gold for things and silver for things. Oh, Greg, you know what? I have an ounce of this, and you have this, and I'd like to have it. How about we pull over a transaction like that? You can do it now. We don't have to wait. You want to transact outside their system, you can do it. You can do it with a cryptocurrency as well. I've taken Bitcoin for things gladly. I don't have to transact in dollars, and no one has to transact in dollars. You can transact outside the system right now. You don't have to wait for anything. What are you waiting for? Do it now.
Yeah, there's several states out west who have passed ordinances that specifically make precious metals legal tender in their states.
Of course. You can be outside the system. I don't know what people are thinking. Why not say I'm willing to take this for that? You don't have to transact in dollars. You could transact in, I don't know, services. How's that? Tell your neighbor, you know what? I'm going to be a nice neighbor today, and I'm going to mow your lawn and trim your property, and then maybe if you want to, you can give me an ounce of silver for it. I don't know, something along those lines, or vice versa. Pay somebody in silver if you have some silver laying around. If you want to, I wouldn't suggest doing that. I would suggest right now we are on the accumulation phase. We are still in a major accumulation phase for gold and especially silver. Accumulate as much as you can. I'm not saying people should take out loans to do it or sell their car. But I think people need to, take whatever extra capital they got, dollars, and convert those dollars into hard assets. With the same thing with cryptocurrency, in my view. I mean, look, I was telling people to buy Bitcoin at $2,700. What is it? Almost 12,000. That's a pretty nice move. But I don't think it's time to sell that either. I think that we need to accumulate these as well. It's part of my whole scheme of betting against the debt and becoming your own central bank. They're going to kill the dollar. They're determined to kill the dollar. Look at the dollar performance lately. It's not just me talking about it anymore. It's you got major networks talking about, look at the dollar. Look at the dollar. They're a little late to the party here. But that's the plan. The plan is to kill the dollar in its current form, all digital. They're going to track every single transaction upside down, backwards, and sideways, down to the fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a penny. It's all about control. That's what this whole thing is about, control. And look what they're getting away with now, just the whole coronavirus thing. Control. How hard can they push people before they push back? It seems that they can push people pretty hard and they won't do a darn thing. And that's unfortunately the way it's going to go.
Several other questions I'll group all together, all about what your thought is about mining stocks, gold and silver minings. Woj Shadman says, if Greg was going to put around $2,000 into something, would he buy an ounce of gold or about 50 ounces of silver, considering current premiums, or would he buy mining stocks? If mining stocks, which ones?
I buy silver. It's a no-brainer to me. I don't trade mining stocks. I don't buy mining stocks. I understand a lot of people look at this stuff. Look, anyone that follows my work should have a handle on what I specifically trade. I trade, going back to core positions, basically large cap stocks, highly liquid companies. Liquid. Most of them are in debt. But
Not solvent, maybe, but liquid.
yeah, and there's a reason for that, because I'm looking for, again, I'm a derivatives trader. The reason why I'm not trading some obscure companies, because I'm looking for a very small spread between the bid and the ask price. I don't want to pay a large premium to own one of these things. I want to be able to sell it immediately. I want to be able to into a position and out immediately. I mean, I almost never trade SLV and GLD. I did just yesterday when we had that big drop. I actually told people, look, I just bought calls on SLV and GLD. I held them overnight. I sold them this morning. I made I forgot 5% on the gold trade and 11 or something percent, whatever it was. Nice money on these things. And I don't like trading SLV. I don't like trading GLD. They're just too rigged for me. And you got these big players dumping paper onto the market using a market order, and drives it down. Just like what did silver fall 14% yesterday? I think it was something like that. But so I don't do it. And I don't mining stocks. I don't know. Look at the bid and ask spread there. If you're asking me if I want to own them, no. Would I trade them? I don't know. It depends. I want to see the bid. I want to see the ask, and maybe I would consider it, but I just haven't yet. I don't see the need. People that are following my trades right now on my free newsletter, they couldn't possibly be doing better. I don't care what they're trading. It's just not going to be any different. And I don't care what the asset might be. It could be we're trading pencil erasers. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just a matter of using a means to an end. If you want to choose to use a mining stock to do that, well, then that's great. But you better understand what you're doing. You better know things, what a bid price is, what an ask price is, what the spread is. You have to know all this stuff. You can't just throw arbitrary things against a wall and say, well, maybe I should do that. No. If you get involved like that, then you're going to lose. The market is a shark tank. That's the truth. And people that swim in it mostly will get burned. That's why you got to be so on top of this all the time. I live this stuff. You got to immerse yourself in it. Otherwise, you're going to lose. And I don't want anyone to lose, especially myself.
If we could get way back out to the big picture here for our last question. You've mentioned about this vision that you have of people paying it forward, helping their neighbors, that sort of thing, and maybe that partially answers this question. Jason Bourne says, let's get to the point. Are we going to be like Venezuela?
Look, no matter where we end up, whether it's like Venezuela eating zoo animals or whatever it might be, because they were doing that, we're going to need each other, all right, in the end here. And that's why I want like-minded people to get together. I want people to care about each other. Every single Friday, I leave off with 3 things: love each other, care about each other, and be charitable. If people would embrace those 3 things, and make that part of who they are, we will all be better off. I can't think of another way to say it. It's the truth.
Greg, we just thank you for joining us. This has been Gregory Mannarino. People can find your work at traderschoice.net. I've already said they should sign up for you on Twitter as well, because you give all this intraday updates and lots of other perspectives. The things that you repost and retweet that are current in the news are very enlightening as well. We've been speaking with Gregory Mannarino. He is the founder of traderschoice.net. Thanks for joining us again on Liberty and Finance.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
If you've decided that now is the right time for you to protect your family's financial future by acquiring physical precious metals, gold and silver, I'm delighted to let you know that I have now become a licensed dealer's representative for Miles Franklin, one of the oldest and most trusted names in bullion dealerships. And we can provide you with physical delivery to your personal possession or to professional vault storage or precious metals IRAs. Just email me at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com, and please include your name and phone number in your email to libertyandfinance@protonmail.com. We'll get right back with you and find out how to best meet your needs so that you can either begin or increase your acquisition of physical precious metals now. and protect your family's future starting today.